It's that time of the month again, and it's that time of the month again where I review the Watchtower magazine, and this latest one was pretty unremarkable. I actually recorded and made a whole video about it, and upon editing that, I realized I don't think I had a whole lot to say, but I was trying to say something, and that is really not worth anyone's time. So I was doddering around thinking about, what should I record a video about? And I happened to take a peek at the very end of the Watchtower, which isn't normally something I do. There's usually like a puff piece about some statistics on a country in South America or Africa, or just something that is not terribly interesting. But this one was absolutely terribly interesting, and it really marks something that I've been highlighting more and more recently, how old Watchtower, that old battle axe, she's gone, she dead. Watchtower is becoming fundamentally something different. So let's talk about it. Hello and welcome back to the JW Thoughts channel. My name is Wally, and today we are talking about building a solid foundation of faith. Quickly, before we get into it, don't forget to drop a like on the video. It literally takes a half a second, and it helps it get out to more people on YouTube, which helps the cause, helps me. It's very much appreciated, all of that good crap. If you like it, good. I'm glad we covered that. Now that we're here, let's jump right into this thing. And what I'm going to do is compare it to an article from 20 years ago in 2000. That sounds weird. 2007 was nearly 20 years ago. Let that sink in as we both slowly slip into a solipsistic coma. Anyway, the reason that I want to do that is just so you can see how they've changed their messaging from something that is very specific and knowable to something that's more vague and vibes based, essentially. So here we go. Build your faith on a solid foundation. When you study the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses, what convinced you that you had found the one faith, the one acceptable way of worship that God approves? Were you drawn to Jehovah's people because of the love you observed among them? Did their upright conduct make a favorable impression on you? Many are attracted to the truth because God's organization makes them feel safe and genuinely loved, and that is understandable. Love and good conduct are identifying marks of true worship. But what if a fellow believer offends you or in some way fails to show you love? What if a fellow believer gets involved in serious sin, even scandalous conduct, as occurred in an individual in the first century congregation in Corinth? If your faith depends solely on how the actions of others make you feel, is it resting on a shaky foundation? Is there a more stable foundation for your faith? Now, nothing makes me happier than seeing Watchtower make changes to their policies or rules or their doctrine, and this having a negative effect on people, and them not exactly realizing that they are the ones that cause the problem that they're now having to deal with. So again, I don't know what goes on inside their little noodles, but here's my game theory. So what Watchtower has fundamentally done is moved away from those deep doctrines of dragons and prophecies and King of the North and King of the South and Jon Snow and all of that stuff. Like, they've moved away from that and are just more about love and unity, governing body and harmony, and preaching and governing body, and building projects and governing body. That is fundamentally how they've shifted things, and it's become a lot more dependent on a culture. It is a community that people feel safe and comfortable in, as they've described here. And they don't really talk about or highlight those, deep things of God and the Bible so much anymore. So the reason people nowadays, I suspect, are more likely to stay Jehovah's Witnesses is because that's what their friends and family are. But that is only going to work if their friends and family are. And hey, call me crazy over here in the Pacific Northwest. I might be cooking a little bit too hard. But I think Jehovah's Witnesses are waking up more than they have at any other point in time. I'm just saying, like, on average. Like, obviously there's like the 1975 thing, there's the first time they changed the generation teaching, there's specific points in time that we could point to, but looking at it sort of like a long timeline, I think that their numbers are growing slower and people are leaving faster than ever before. And when this happens, and you're no longer telling people all of these intricate, deep truths, you got a fundamental problem, because the people that want to stay are no longer staying because their friends or their family are leaving. And so now they want to go back. Let's talk about the foundation of our faith. And so I suspected that this was going to be an article. Okay, how do we study Bible prophecy? How do we study, these deep things of God? But that's not what they said. You can build a strong foundation for your faith by deepening your conviction in the basic truths you have learned from the Bible. That is a sentence I really found perplexing. For being a Jehovah's Witness, and now on YouTube covering the Jehovah's Witnesses, that's not something I'm familiar with hearing from them. Deepening your conviction in the basic truths. Usually when you have some type of problem, the option presented to you by Watchtower was to double down, become a better Jehovah's Witness. When I had my first waking up moment, I was standing on stage at a Kingdom Hall and they're singing Listen, Obey, and Be Blessed. And I'm looking out at this sea of zombies in front of me. I did what Watchtower programmed me to do, what they told me to do. I was like, okay, we are going to step in. We're going to get greasy, roll up the sleeves, get down and dirty, get in the mud. And we are going to be the best Bible student. We're going to understand everything about what it means to be a Jehovah's Witness. And that's what woke me up. Doing that research, just using Watchtower Library and this hollow thing up here, I woke up. And I think that a lot of people wake up. So now they are in this weird position where you don't want to tell people to search into the deep things of God because that will wake them up. But you also want them to do foundational research, because if the only reason that they're staying a Jehovah's Witness is because their friends and family are, and now their friends and family are leaving at an unprecedented rate, what are you as a leader of this group, of this cult, what are you going to tell them? You can't tell them to do research and you can't tell them to stay for the vibes. So what are you going to tell them? And in a master class of ineptitude, these guys came up with this. You can build a strong foundation for your faith by deepening your conviction in the basic truths you have learned from the Bible. Well, what do they mean by basic truths? Well, they have some gobbledygook about Peter and him questioning stuff. It's really not too interesting, so we'll just move right past that here. But what does this account teach us? What we know can be more powerful than how we feel. Because Bible doctrines, including the truths we have learned about God's name, his purpose, and the ransom, remain constant. Unlike our feelings, Bible truths are not affected by what people do or say, unless those people are the governing body. Those Bible truths that are constant, why are they in such a flux? And I think that's part of the equation why they're focusing on just, hey, let's think about only the most bare bones basic stuff. There's no hellfire, there's no Trinity, there's a paradise earth, not everyone goes to heaven, and paradise pandas, and that is about it. I think that it's really a lie. This paragraph, it's not telling the truth, because their doctrine is affected by how people feel and think. It's just how the people at the very top of the organization feel and think about any given set of scripture. So it's important, I think, to really highlight just how absurd of a statement this is. And, from the aspect of telling people to remind themselves of God's name, which just seems like crazy, but also that, well, these Bible truths always remain the same, because here in a little bit, when we're back to regular recording, Wally, we're going to see a Bible truth that didn't remain the same. And conveniently, that Bible truth help consolidate all the power towards the governing body. Because Bible doctrines, including the truths we have learned about God's name, his purpose, and the ransom, remain constant. Unlike our feelings, Bible truths are not affected by what people do or say. Therefore, if we are convinced of Bible truths and we connect these truths with the channel Jehovah is using, we can avoid being stumbled by the behavior of others. So, what are these truths that we can remind ourselves of? What is this foundation for your faith? Jehovah, the paradise, and Jesus dying for your sins. Now, here's where we have to go and compare that 2007 Watchtower, just so you can see for yourself exactly how this is shifted. And the one I've chosen wasn't by accident. It's very specific for why they're not talking about any of these more intricate, deeper truths, something that would take more than a cursory glance to look at. Okay, so this article is entitled Searching into the Deep Things of God, and it just sets things up, how excited we were when someone finally helped us to learn about these deep things, or, these Bible truths, and then eventually, you have to learn these deep things of God. So why do we need to understand those deep things? Understanding not only what we believe, but why we believe it, the underlying reasons for our belief, strengthens our faith and confidence. The scriptures tell us to use our power of reason to prove to ourselves the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Understanding why Jehovah asks us to live in a certain way fortifies our resolve to obey him. Therefore, knowledge of the deep things can give us strength to resist the temptation to engage in lawless acts and can move us to be zealous for fine works. Notice that shift. If you've been keeping up with the channel, you know how much they've been saying, well, trust us even if it doesn't make sense, even if there's not a real good reason to do so. Back then, 2007, it wasn't about that. It was, hey, we can have a robust understanding of truth with a capital T. We can be sure, we can be certain, and all you have to do is put in the work. If you study, do the research, make it make sense, it will strengthen your faith. That's how confident they were in the doctrine. This new Watchtower doesn't read as if they have a lot of confidence in their own doctrine, and I think that is a pretty important understanding or insight. Now, they talk a little bit about how studying can be hard, how everyone has a different ability when it comes to the acquisition of knowledge, but at least God will always help people whenever they're searching for these deep spiritual truths. And then we'll pick it up here in paragraph 6. Worldwide, all congregations enjoy a similar program of Bible study. Over a period of years, they cover the entire range of Bible teachings. Now, this is something that I think is important to know. If Jehovah's Witnesses are spending so much of their free time doing Bible study, going to meetings, teaching the Bible to other people, why on God's green earth are they going to need to remind themselves of basic truths? Like, what functionally does that accomplish? If I know how to edit videos and there's like a very basic workflow that I have and I've done it 1,000 times and I've optimized it and it's as fast as possible, right? Would I need to go and watch a YouTube tutorial showing me exactly the thing that I know so that way what does it accomplish? If you're telling people that they need to be reminded of basic spiritual truths, what the heck were they going to all those meetings for? Why did they spend the last 15 years of their life showing up to the Kingdom Hall twice a week to somehow need to be reminded that God's name is Jehovah? This is, in my mind, evidence of leadership that doesn't know what they're doing. They are desperately trying to take their organization in a fundamentally different direction, slowly, little bits at a time, but they don't have like a cohesive, clear vision that everyone agrees upon. To me, this is evidence that they are not 100% sure of the roadmap. They just know that they need to go somewhere. At least that's how I'm reading into it, but let's continue. Now it gets into some of the examples of these deep things of God, and here's where we get a little bit spicy. A second example of deep things that have been revealed to us concerns God's purpose to select 144,000 from among mankind. We accept the teaching that all of the anointed living on earth at any given time constitute the faithful and discreet slave that Jesus said would provide timely food for his domestics. What Bible texts prove this understanding is correct? Spoiler alert, none of them, because the Jehovah's Witnesses got rid of this teaching. They now say that this faithful and discreet slave class, this analogy, this illustration that Jesus was using, it has a prophetic significance that bestows all power on earth to not 144,000 people, but to only the governing body. So in 2007, when they say, well, what scriptures prove that this understanding is absolutely correct and true? Now it's changed. That looks a little bit embarrassing. It's like, well, if you could be so sure and then just arbitrarily change your mind a few years later, what's to say that this thing or the other thing or any manner of doctrines, policies, procedures, whatever, what's to say that not all of them are subject to change, like this one? And I suspect that is why they are talking about restudying Jehovah's name, the paradise, and Jesus' death. I think they don't want to point you to these deep things of God because those deep things in God are in a state of flux right now. I think there is, like I said, an end destination, but the pathway to get there is a little bit blurry. And so the leadership is struggling at best to try and come up with reasonable sounding advice for people with the current landscape of the Jehovah's Witness religion. Now let's jump back to the new Watchtower and see how it ends. Granted, we feel encouraged by the love of the brotherhood, we feel uplifted by the good conduct of our fellow believers, but if those feelings should ever start to waver because of the actions of others, then our conviction in Bible truths can stabilize our faith. It will help us to recognize that we are in the right organization, regardless of the actions of a few individuals. When we have a good routine of personal Bible study, we strengthen our conviction in the truths we have learned. That conviction, blah, 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 doesn't matter. So there you have it. That whole the truth, that's out. When ex-Jehovah's Witnesses call it the truth, even if it's a little bit of a slip of the tongue, yeah, they're not even using that lingo anymore. It's only a couple years from now, and there will be an elder's letter saying, hey, we've noticed some people still calling it the truth. We're going to need you to get rid of that. And if you think they haven't done that before, they have. There was a letter that came out that they said that they were mad that people were still calling it the society. Oh, why are you guys sticking with this old lingo from the 1970s where we used to print it all the time in our watchtowers and call it the society? Can you guys stop doing that? And so eventually people moved away from that. And now, post that, they started calling it the truth. This is just me making a prediction. Where's the old tinfoil hat? This is just me getting a little wacky on the stupid juice here. I think that they're going to come out and be like, hey, can we stop calling it the truth? We don't need to call that anymore because it is a reminder of a bygone era where they used to feel a deep connection to the Bible and understand or think they understood it on a deeper level than anyone else. Put this off. And now it's vibes. It's all vibes. So it's an impossible situation. What's the Thomas Jefferson talking about slavery? It's like holding a wolf by the ears. You can't let go because then he'll attack you, but then you can't hold on forever. So what are you going to do? He was also a racist, so I don't really know why I chose that for an example, but hopefully you get the point. I think they find themselves in a very impossible situation. You can't tell people to go and find those deep things of God, because if you do, they might wake up, they might see for themselves just how much has changed. The fundamentals are still there, but they've changed so many things that religion that they go and try and do research on will be wholly unrecognizable from the one that they exist in today. And the religion that they exist in today is vibe-based. It's community-based. They are there for the friendship, not for the spiritual farts of the governing body. So pretty interesting stuff. I kind of miss Old Watchtower. It's very nostalgic for me. I'm all about the lampposts and the kings of the north and all of the craziness. I feel like cults excel whenever they really lean into culting. Like they get in there and they cult hard. This is like, hey, let's keep all of the things that makes people's lives terrible. We'll keep the shunning. We'll still discourage, higher education, even though it's technically kind of, sort of allowed. All of this other business. They'll keep all of that. But then they get rid of all the goofy, crazy stuff like the Revelation book and the Daniel book and Isaiah's prophecy book. Those are some true cult classics. But I guess that's why the expression exists. It's a cult classic. Cults don't cult for very long. Eventually they have to go mainstream if they want to remain solvent. Anyway, that's really about all of the little tidbits I found that I think are even worth mentioning. So there you have it. Anyway, thank you so much for making it this far into the video. Very much appreciate you. If you haven't liked. If you haven't hype. With all of that being said, stay safe, be kind, and don't forget to spend more time loving the things you love than hating the things you hate. Now go out there and have a good ass day.